Curt, when people watch the Dallas Wings this season, what do you want them to immediately see that's different from last year?
Yeah, I mean, I think anyone that's been around training camp early, even with many players that will be on the opening day roster not here yet, there's certainly an accountability throughout the room. And when you watch, Jose knows how he wants to play, a seasoned head coach, and that there's standards being set immediately, and what are his non-negotiables are loud and clear each and every day. And so I think when you watch this team play, there's going to be an identity that becomes apparent on both sides of the ball, what's important to him, and a standard that the players are held to. And when they're short of that, he's not afraid to have trust and truth in the conversations. And again, it all comes back for him on holding everybody accountable. And good players, as he always mentions, great players want to be coached. They want to be held accountable.
I have a couple questions. First, this roster is loaded with young stars. How do you build around them without rushing the process?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's balance, and there was intent this offseason. Obviously, a young core. We knew we were going to lose some players that we didn't necessarily want to lose with the expansion draft. That's all part of it. Last year's construction was done before the rules of this year's expansion draft. And so kind of, all of us were, learning through those rules, coming clear on what the expansion draft looked like. So there was an intent to have the youth and the build that's very, very important with back-to-back number one picks. Also other talented rookies last year that we knew would come back, or players certainly still very young. But there was an intent this year to add veterans in the locker room, which we were successful in free agency doing. So we feel like there's a good balance. There's a balance in that locker room now of youth, but the experience is very, very important to also add. So again, we want to win now. Coaches always want to win now, so we're trying to help Jose and his staff. But the GM silo certainly wants to continue to look at sustainability and sustained success.
What are the biggest standard moves this offseason that the fans might fully understand?
The biggest statement move? Sure, there was a lot. What we were asked to do as the 15 GMs around this league in the window that we just did it is unprecedented. We're going to be bonded for life. I think some of us are finally coming up for air, but there's still moving parts. All of us still have players overseas trying to get here, either from leagues that are just ending or through their immigration process. But I think, every move was calculated by us for one reason or the other, to add depth, to add veterans, to add certain positions. It was all calculated, but some of our moves to open up salary cap was also very calculated and probably unrecognized by the average fan. But moves have to be made in order, when you have a hard cap to do, in order to turn around and be able to have the flexibility with a hard cap in this unprecedented free agency to go out and attract players with salaries that you now have because of those. So, some of the statement moves were probably less noticeable for us, but allowed us to do domino effect moves because of those.
Maya, go ahead.
I was wondering if you had any further updates on some of the players that are still overseas.
Yeah. Happy to report that Jess Shepard will arrive this evening after her Italian League championship. And Enrique arrives back from her Chinese championship. And Dulcie has arrived from her Serbian League championship. So really excited that we're starting to get people back, but also excited that they finished off with championships and now are returning. Still no time to report for a Walks arrival, and a little bit unknown on Costanza Verona's. Off of her, also was on Jess Shepard's team in Italy on their Italian championship. She may be a day or two behind, but will also arrive shortly. But Dulcie has arrived, Enrique and Jess Shepard tonight.
Tim, go ahead.
Curt, Tim Calvishot, Dallas Mavericks. You now have UConn's championship backcourt from 2025. In your experience, how should that translate, not just on the floor for your team, but the appeal of two major college stars coming to Dallas Mavericks?
Yeah, certainly you want to bring championship pedigree into the locker room. And that's Final Fours, that's collegiate championships. It's when you're acquiring veterans in this league. Have they had championship pedigree, in this league? So it's really, really important. Obviously, Paige and AZ are familiar with their game. They're familiar with how to play off of each other. So we're really, really excited to have that backcourt. But you look around the success of UConn players in our league, what we say all the time is they know how to play the right way. And culture, the non-negotiables in our locker room, that you don't teach effort, you don't coach effort. Jose doesn't have to worry about that with those players and the pedigree that they come from playing for Coach Gino. So, really, really excited about our young pieces that we continue to build with.
Landy, go ahead.
Curt, when you look at last year's team and you assess the areas of improvement or focus areas that you can get better at, what were those areas and how did you address them?
Yeah, I think, first and foremost, we wanted to improve our overall post game. Knowing that we could lose some posts in expansion draft, we couldn't protect them all. So that was a big area of need. We've discussed how talented Paige is with the ball in her hands, but also how elite she is when she's off the ball. And one way opponents try to wear her down is, to guard her really hard when she has the ball. So adding a veteran point guard into our locker room was really, really important. I think those were the big areas. Improve our overall post game, add a veteran point guard. We brought in Lindsey Allen, we brought in Odyssey Sims, fight out for spots on this roster. And then when you look at the veteran post players in this league, and who we targeted to believe they were going to go back to their teams, when you look at the great post players in our league, that Asia Wilson was going to go back, that Fee was going to go back, that AT was going to go back, that JJ was going to go back, that Stewie was going to go back, and you look at all the post players that were going to go back to their teams that they were previously playing on. You got really quickly to Jess Shepard and Alana Smith that potentially were willing to move. And for us to land both of them was a huge free agency get for us in what we wanted to do and improve our overall post game. And then obviously bringing a walk back after a few years off and accomplishing what she wanted to do was get older, get more mature, get stronger, get more confident. We're bringing back a very confident and a very much improved walk to this franchise. So excited about the depth of posts that we brought in that we didn't necessarily have last year.
You just talked about Awap. How does Awap's game now compare to her first run with the Wings?
Yeah, I think you see a confidence first and foremost, but her body's different. Like, she's really added muscle and strength. She's really did what she set out to accomplish. She wanted to take a couple years and improve. We went and met with her and, really recruited her hard last year to come back. And she said, I improved this much with one good international season. What could I do if I do it one more year? So we were supportive, we were patient, and we recruited the heck out of her again. And now that she's coming back, we can't be happier and can't wait to get her here. That's the last step.
We have a question in the chat from Sophie Dumont. What about this group has stood out so far, this particular roster in camp so far?
Yeah, I think we're building upon what was great last year at the end of the year was the chemistry and the culture in the locker room. They're having a bunch of fun. At the same time, they're working. I think the veterans in this locker room this early in training camp have really helped. AC, Alicia Clark has really helped bring a veteran presence. Odyssey was outstanding the other day with an inter-squad scrimmage. So you can see the joy they're playing with. You can see the chemistry built upon what was a good culture locker room despite the record last year. When we ended last year, it was a great locker room, a together player locker room. And so I'm excited that we've added pieces and feel like we've just really picked up where we left off, but now have more veterans.
Yes, Curt. So in this era of the WNBA with expansion continuously happening, is it harder for GMs at this time? And how do you just go about that, especially trying to grow a team, but you know that you have the team protected as more WNBA teams come?
Yeah, certainly, in my 12 years, starting my 12th year in the league and wearing the dual hat for as long as I did, both head coach and GM, the job of a GM is full time. Like, it's 16, 18 hours a day. It is truly a different animal than it was when I was the dual hat for years and years. The cap is so much more sophisticated now when it was a smaller cap. And the difference between max salaries and regular maxes and super maxes and the difference between vet minimums and all that, it's totally different now. So the strategic planning around cap and roster construction is a challenge. And now when you don't know future caps exactly amount, that it has to do with rev share, is a real challenge, and it's becoming very sophisticated, and that's why our GM silo around the league is as good as it's ever been, and we're excited about that as a professional organization.
Back to Maya.
I just wanted to get your thoughts just on the developments with the practice facility, just being involved in delays.
Yeah, no, you bring up delays. I'm just super excited. For us to walk in there, certainly we wanted to be in there this year, but to know we're going to walk into a brand new practice facility that will rival any in our league in 2027 was a big attraction to players in free agency. They know that we have this last year in CPC, who's been an incredible partner at UT Arlington, but to know that we are moving into Dallas, it's totally positive. So our practice facility is 70,000 square feet. Our weight room is going to be the largest in the league, where their health and performance is taken part. It's probably bigger than more than half the NBA practice facilities. That facility is just state of the art. So it just makes me smile. I've been in the league now starting my 12th year. I've yet to be in a dedicated practice facility. So to know finally going into my 13th year, I'm going to be in a state of the art practice facility is a long time coming for me. Think about that. And I'm surrounded by players that are the same way. They haven't been in a practice facility. So I'm really, really excited. Certainly we got to wait a year, but truly excited. And then ultimately to be playing our games in downtown Dallas, really, really excited about the future. And I think you saw in free agency that the word's out. We don't puff our chest out like some of the organizations that get a reputation of spenders in this league. And what is going on quietly without puffing out our chest, the way that we're investing, the way that we're spending is, very, very impressive by our ownership behind the scenes. And who felt it the most was players in free agency. They heard it and felt it. Even ones that maybe didn't choose to come here this year, they've heard it. And the noise is out there about Dallas and where we're headed.
Curt, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank